Hey everyone, welcome to the Doc Analyzes Anything, where psychology and science meet and we attempt to explain any and every human behavior, including Behaviormatic 5000. Maintaining intense eye contact long after the window of comfort has passed.
Uh,
That's a good one.
I have to say that I have been known, and probably because I'm always like getting bored with the conversation I'm in and going into deep thought when I shouldn't, but I'm notorious for sitting at restaurants and staring people right in the eyes for long periods of time across the room without even realizing I'm looking at them.
In the eyes.
Yeah, no, like this one lady that we were up north over the holiday weekend, and she's like smiling and waving and like, oh shoot, I'm sorry, I had no idea. I was like looking at the wall behind you, didn't realize that you thought I was just dead staring you, kind of frowning, kind of just deep thought looking. And so I apologize to that lady.
Yeah, you should apologize. I'm sure she's a listener.
uh, we'll get back to a real quick story on that in a minute while we introduce our co-host for the day here. But just for everybody to know, we are talking about the hustle culture, everybody getting on their grind, trying to make some money here, and the behavior analytic ideals behind that and what might be going on. And I think the reason we're talking about that might become a little more clear here soon. But for anybody that's just joined us for the first time, how dare you? But I'm your host, Dr. Steven Sparks. Here with me is my co-host, Kyle Steury. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube rather than just listening to us, you'll notice that Dr. Bradley Meow Meow is not here this week, that jerk. We gave him the co-host, or like the kind of co-host title, and then immediately he starts making demands. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing? Thought we should change our recording schedule to fit him working. Like, what the hell is that? I mean, it's not like
his rider was rough.
I mean, and it's understandable. It's not like we're paying the guy or anything, but still, like, show up. Come on, man. And then, this week he thinks he needs to be part of like the wedding festivities for a friend just because he's in the wedding. It's just ridiculous. But Drew and Lexi, congratulations, by the way. How dare you not schedule your wedding around our recording? And also, how dare you not reschedule your wedding so I could have attended, because I couldn't make it this weekend, but I wanted to. So congratulations, but how dare you also?
Maybe you weren't invited.
Oh, I got a text invite, and so it was at least a pity invite. It probably wasn't a real invite, but it was at least like, hey, you're kind of fun-ish. Why don't you show up? Maybe we'll let you in the back door, sort of thing. But
We didn't want to spend like 5 cents on the invite. But...
no. So here's a link. If you can figure out the technology, you can come. And that was about all it was. But luckily for Dr. Meow Meow, we do not fire people around here. Again, we're not paying him, but we don't fire people around here. Instead, we fire him out of a cannon. If you survive, then you can come back. So he may be back next time. We'll just have to see how it goes. But in his place this week is my good friend, Chad Hartung, who has been dealing with me for way too long, since his dad moved in down the street from my family, 35 years ago. And obviously he doesn't have any good enough sense to know when people are a bad influence, but we've been hanging out ever since, and he's a nice guy, so we allowed him to come on today. So welcome, Chad.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a writer, so I think that's why I'm here.
Yeah. And also you've had podcast experience. You had your own podcast, mostly in the area of marketing, for small businesses, stuff like that. You ask good questions, and you've always been good at setting yourself up for the butt of a joke. And so I figured that was a really good fitting thing here. Plus, you're less likely to say something horribly offlandish that we have to edit out than a lot of our other friends. So,
well, I appreciate that. Those are all great qualities.
That's what we look for in co-hosts.
So, getting back to what we were talking about, what were we talking about?
Eye contact?
Yeah, the eye contact. One time, I think Chad was there with us at the bar in our hometown, and my uncle actually came out to hang out for a little bit, and I didn't realize a few beers in that I was like dazed off, not like paying attention to the conversation anymore. We're sitting on the roof of Mr. B's, which is no longer there anymore, actually, and I realized that these two guys across the bar are like getting hyped up, like they're going to come fight us, because I've been staring at the same brick between their heads at the table across the room for about a half hour, just like deadpan staring at. I'm like, and of course now I'm laughing at their anger, which doesn't help the situation at all. But nothing ever came of it. But I figured I should introduce Chad before I tell that story, because otherwise they'd be like, who the hell is he talking to?
Yeah.
Were you there for this, Chad?
I'm sure I was, but as Steve mentioned, a couple beers in, so my memory doesn't. I'm not great on the memory side. Like, I don't know what I had for lunch yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know that I ate lunch, so.
Your drinking problems are that pervasive, huh?
Were. So because I mentioned you've done the podcast for like marketing, consulting, small businesses, and we let you choose a topic. I think it's kind of obvious why we are talking about the hustle culture. But why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about like what you actually do, what your work has been, that sort of thing. And then also I have to mention, if you call yourself a business guru, we are also launching you out of the canon. So don't use the term guru ever.
Noted. Yeah. Listen, I definitely don't consider myself a guru. But my background came from sales, retail sales. So I started off back in the day with Radio Shack. I'm sure everybody remembers that. And that evolved into the cellular world with Singular and AT&T. I worked my way up through there to become the marketing and communications director in less than a decade. And I was laid off. So I had to hustle and grind and start my own business. And, the hustle culture part kind of came from that, because I was like working full time, but also trying to do my own thing. Right. But now what I do is solely, I have a business. It's called Ever Studios, and we do website design, host, manage the whole
shameless
thing.
plug. Shameless
Plug. That's EV. We do website design, we do advanced SEO, we do consulting directly for small businesses, and then we do paid advertising across Meta and Google. So really, it's kind of like these evolving steps of digital marketing, but you have to start like with the foundation, and that's really like our focus is get businesses, small businesses, to have a fighting chance against some of these really big companies that are just killing it. So that's what we focus on. That's what we specialize in. We do not work with medium and large sized businesses. We really want those small guys to really make it.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. So that is, as Chad asks questions as we go through, where he's coming from with those questions, that sort of thing. I think that's more than anything why I introduced that. Also, I've just hit that point, and I've had enough cold brew and not eaten anything today where my teeth are starting to chatter. So we should be perfect moving through the rest of this.
Right on.
This is good.
So when you came up like throughout the topic of the hustle culture, and it is, I guess we'll get into that. And to me, it seems as much about the social constructs of the culture as much as it is about the work itself. But I decided, I'm only familiar with it from seeing people on social media and how it's talked about. Let's look up a definition, and it's not really been clearly defined, online in a dictionary. The best I found was the BBC talking about the idea that there's always more to strive for, more money to make, bigger title or a promotion to secure, or a higher ceiling to smash, is how they talked about it from an entrepreneurial spirit. And they're suggesting it's really come out of the entrepreneurial culture of the 90s, where everybody was trying to do their own thing. And I guess my thought is this really different, or just kind of rebranding of what's always kind of been the idea of the culture? I mean, if you think back to the 1950s, 1930s about, the office guy going out, coming home late, dinner on the table, cliche sort of thing. Or, going back even further than that to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, you have, if anybody's read The Jungle, they were working a meat packing plant. You had to be in there working crazy hours, no overtime. The conditions were horrible. People were dying because of lack of safety. But if you complained, you're out of there, and you just don't have work, because there wasn't the amount of work back in those times. And actually, I was listening to that podcast, Criminal, we mentioned on the podcast episode, the true crime episode, where there was one yesterday I was hearing about the Ludlow massacre and Rockefeller and his miners out. And, you know, they actually brought in the National Guard and they had a gun battle with these miners over working conditions, because if you complained, you just were out of work. And so I say even before then, like before the Industrial Revolution, you had farmers or whatever you were involved in. If you just didn't work crazy hours, work your ass off, you just died. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. Do you think it has as much to do with the actual work and getting out there, or maybe the type of work and the culture surrounding it that we're actually talking about? It is kind of where my question is.
For me, I mean, it's super interesting. The gears are going. Yeah, a lot of stuff is going through my head. So one of the things we definitely in America live in a society where people value freedom as far as like time, right? Time is a really valuable thing. And ironically, what we're doing is hustling and grinding and consuming more time in order to buy the cool things that we just don't have time to use. And my experience, I lived in Colombia for 3 months. We go back and forth. There is
put the pinky up. You're like, yes, I winter in Colombia. I mean, come on now. He's like a dual citizen being adopted out of Colombia, so he gets to go down there and hang out in the sun while we're all freezing up here in Michigan.
Yeah,
don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
You're a jerk is really what we're getting at.
It could have been Florida, but I'll tell you, Colombia is super affordable. But when it comes to like hustle culture, I will tell you there's definitely a different work ethic. And one of the things I definitely see is in Colombia, they work really hard throughout the day. But when it's time to stop, they just stop. There is no picking up the phone at 7 o'clock to answer your boss. They're out partying. Even the people who are in their 50s and 60s are up till 2 o'clock in the morning with family. They have like this structure where there's a lot of value with like the family unit, a ton of value there. And in my experience, I've noticed that in America, we're starting to, we say that we have this value. We love our family, but a lot of times we're like, outsourcing childcare so that both parties can go and work, aka the hustle, right? Because they want to or need to pay for these expensive things, have this beautiful house, have a pool in the backyard, all of these things, but at what cost, right? So
I'd say, going back to the idea, I think that's probably been part of our culture since my first prisoner ancestors were shipped over on the Mayflower. You know what I mean? Like, we were definitely kicked out of England. We were not coming here searching for a better life. But and that's a true story. My parents would be like, oh, you know, we came over the Mayflower, but maybe you shouldn't brag about that because we were probably just criminals. But truthfully, like, it's always been that, like, all right, you know, the village has to raise my family because I have to just keep working to try to survive at all, is kind of the feel that I get reading the history of it. And so I wonder if the culture in Colombia has always been different, where it's about, we're going to be as a community working hard to do what we need to do to survive, so then we can also have fun together and enjoy each other too. And it's just set up differently, or where that came from, you know?
The village or the community supporting is vastly different than outsourcing to tater tots childcare.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have like grandma and grandpa that are still around and they're the ones that are influencing and being part of that childcare, that's different than the third grade teacher that's part-timing doing childcare during the summer at this place, right? They may or may not share the values that the parents have, but you really don't know what your child's being surrounded by, right? But in the name of making more money so that you can consume more and live this extravagant lifestyle so that you can go to dinner and say, hey, guess what we did? We vacationed in Colombia, or whatever their situation is, right? to be able, I mean, there are definitely cities in the United States that cost more, right? But with an average household income, I think that some of those numbers are skewed in a way of, you can survive on probably half of that. It just wouldn't be luxurious, but you could feed your family, have a house. It might be tough. I think that we really like all of these fancy things and fun consumables. And so in order to afford that, both parents oftentimes have to work in order to do that. And I think that if we started prioritizing a little bit of what's actually important, we may be able to find that we could have somebody that's at home a little bit more, or maybe even full time. Obviously, that comes with a cost because you don't get the fancy stuff, but you also get to raise kids that are phenomenal and solid, you know?
Well, we'll go even crazier down the rabbit hole without going too far,
Yeah.
because I think that's probably another episode some other time. But you look at some of the other countries historically, like what Venezuela has been going through lately, where, okay, we have these ideals. We want to set up the type of community that you're kind of talking about. We're going to do the switch to a socialist or communist type country. And we've never seen a country that's truly communist or truly socialist. There's just always that label under a dictatorship is how it tends to be. But even with those ideals of everybody being taken care of and doing all right, especially in American culture, I don't think it could work, not because you have people that wouldn't want those things. And I'm not saying that, socialist, like some of those policies aren't helpful for society, even in a place like the United States. But I grew up wanting a Lamborghini my whole life. I don't have a Lamborghini, but even though I may never be able to afford a Lamborghini, the idea of putting myself in a position where I couldn't maybe one day have that Lamborghini sounds extremely aversive to me. You know what I mean? Like, if I was moving or setting up a new government, the idea of what I could maybe have one day, even though I may never have it, prevents me from wanting to live in a situation where now everybody is just doing okay. You know what I mean? And so I think there's that motivation that creates a hustle culture is pretty ingrained, even in a place where, like Venezuela, where they may have more of the Colombian type culture, where there is more of that sharing community. But even then, if you're going to start having any struggles, or you can't, do those extra things to get the extra items, or have that dignity of like, look what I have, I think you start having some issues there too. And so there's almost a need for like a hybrid culture rather than an all or nothing, hard work versus nothing type thing,
Is it always about the tangible things though? So like, as I'm hearing this, maybe I'm not as familiar with like the hustle culture in general. Like, it's nothing that's ever really appealed to me, but when I see it and I hear it, sometimes I hear it in the connotation of like achievement or like personal well-being. Like, I see these posts where it's like 5 a.m. got up, they did an ice bath or whatever, like I ran 3 miles, and then, I got on my game and answered emails for it, like all these things, like, look what I achieved. And it's maybe not even so much as like the monetary, reward of the hard work, but just like the sense of accomplishment. Is that at all a part of it? Or is it solely just like hustle culture is about making as much as possible and having those items to show off?
I think it's up to interpretation. We'll let Chad give his interpretation, but that's kind of what I'm getting at is, so I've started a couple companies now and never thought about it being hustle culture. Like, sure, early on, especially the first one, I'm working crazy hours just making sure it works, but all with the plan to not have to do that in the future and to be able to live well enough, provide for a family, be around for my kids now that I have them, that sort of thing. And so I never thought about it as being a hustle culture. I never even really thought of myself as being in like the entrepreneurial like role, as much as like, all right, I need to work. I don't deal well with authority. I don't like being told what to do. So I need to do my own thing. But to me, the hustle culture is more about the culture and more about the social media posts. Look what I'm doing. Look at the big things I have coming next. More about, and I think that's where the analysis will kind of go from here is it the culture piece, sorry, or is it the hard work piece that we're really talking about? And I think hard work has always been a part of the American society. So what makes hustle culture different is the culture itself. To me, at least that's what I'm seeing. But again, this is just based on social media because I'm not part of that culture. I've never identified as part of that culture.
Yeah, there's definitely such thing as hustling and grinding and not sharing it on social media. So I think there's definitely a feed of, I would like to lightly just call it support, but it might just be peacocking, saying, look what I did, right? You don't have to post that you went to the gym, but we do. People just do that. And
I don't
I'm
go to
sure,
the gym ever.
but I'm sure part of it is, for some people, part of it is documenting, right? It's kind of like saying, like Facebook, for instance, it's very much become a space that is about family and closeness, your close knit group. But
Mm,
you get into like your Instagram, that one is visual storytelling. So that one is all about the actual likes and being, it's, kind of supported and go you. And there's definitely a lot of people that feed off that. They'll post something, they'll be like, that didn't perform well, and they will feel it. They'll feel like the almost dismissal of why didn't that go well, and that can
mm,
definitely affect somebody negatively, based off their posts just not performing, and that's
right.
that's tough. So yeah, monetarily being able to have the fancy stuff, but I think right now, with just the way technology is, it's also feeding an ego. It's also
Oh
being
yeah.
able, yeah, it's also being able to say, I did this, this is what I accomplished on a daily basis, and then filtering it and chopping up the videos. Yeah, there's many aspects to it.
I
I've
just
always
saw one this morning. Sorry, Steve, to interrupt you. I just saw one this morning though on our feed. Is it was we follow a lot of behavior analytic accounts, and the one was just talking about like why do you want to be a great BCBA? Well, you want to help people, you want to make money, you want to have more followers than other people. And I was like, I never thought I didn't more followers. Is that I feel like it's a generational thing where like your follower count is kind of part of your identity, where I feel like it's just kind of up pushing 40. I can take or leave it.
I,
Oh, cool. It performed well, or like, yeah, whatever. But
I
like
remember
to the younger generation,
early Facebook, it was all about everybody just going out in the college town and getting as many friends as Facebook as you could, and it was about how many you had, not who they were. Now I never had I had the time. I would be too frustrated trying to keep up with the social media. But I do think, getting into the hustle culture and what we see, there's a lot of different subsets. From what I've like noticed, there's the people that are often saying, hey, I got this new big thing coming, just wait and see what it is. And that might be marketing themselves. There might be the financial gain is the reinforcer they're trying to get there. But a lot of times that next announcement never comes. We never hear what's going on. And I don't know, did it not go well, or did you decide not to talk about it, or what happened? Or was it just hey, I didn't really have anything going on, but I haven't posted anything in a while, so I'm going to throw this out there for the reaction, the attention from people. You know what I mean?
Big things
have
coming.
Yeah.
yeah, having a MySpace back in the early 2000s and being in a band was the most annoying thing ever, because all your friends' bands like in the studio, check it out, and it's like that was it. Like, just post the song. Like, don't
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit and wait and refresh my browser over and over again until you tell me what the big announcement is. Like,
I
it's
I
like they
played
just got
guitar
ahead of
for
themselves.
I played guitar for a good 10 minutes, so I had MySpace without that. All we did was spend our time putting our favorite music in the background and like having your top 5 or 10 friends or whatever, and then
Top
designing.
friends.
You design all the background pictures to be like, all right, Pistons are going really good this year, so we're gonna have everything's Pistons on my MySpace, and
I
it's
think a lot would be solved if we brought MySpace back to what it was in the early 2000s.
truthfully. So
That's my. I'm gonna die on that hill.
2007, I was moving to Kalamazoo for school. I had finished undergrad because I'd gone to a community college first, and I'm getting ready to move out. And Chad's like, "Dude, you gotta get a Facebook. Everybody's using Facebook." I'm like, "I got MySpace, man. I don't need more things." Like, even at 21, I was a curmudgeon. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this stuff. And so he like made it for me without even telling me. He's like, "Here's your sign-in information. You're gonna need this." And so even from then, I've like tried to avoid adding any more social media to my repertoire. Just from I in my 20s, I'm like, nope, I've had enough of this stuff. And so I'm probably not the best one to analyze other people's social media behavior when I'm just like, what are you guys doing on here? Your kids, get off my
I'm
lawn.
I'm gonna dig up your old MySpace, and it's gonna be in the show notes to this episode. So
That might get us canceled, so maybe don't do that. We were not good people back in those days.
the
we,
truth
we
must come out.
that was our first introduction to like website coding, though, because you had to code everything.
Oh yeah.
And you could find websites that like, hey, I want to have sparkles like dancing in the background or something like that. Like some guys like, oh, just href like whatever like code going on, like just copy paste. I don't know what all's in it, but it does make my
Yeah.
text dance around a little bit. So
That's the extent of my coding knowledge as well. Like that's all I ever did with coding. But I did have to
Copy
learn how to do
pasting.
that. Yeah, copy paste. That's all you did.
Bring back MySpace, but don't make an app for it. It has to be on desktop only.
Desktop only. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll admit to like releasing new singles as a band and like putting them on repeat and like leaving the desktops to up that play count. So like just letting them play every time it played, it would go up a little bit, make the song look a little more popular. So there was an element of wanting to show that facade back even in the early days before social media was really big.
I picture Kyle in a one-man show. He's got like the drum on his front and he's got a harmonica.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, so all that was really just to say that I don't know if I'm the best person to judge social media. Like I've stopped saying happy birthday in social media, not because I don't want to wish people happy birthday, but what if I miss a handful and then someone gets mad at me and I don't even realize why? Like trying to navigate this as a person who doesn't really enjoy it the way I think a lot of people do. It's not easy either. But
I saw a post the other day and they said, thank you to the 72 people that wished me happy birthday. I was like, oh, come on. And then they had like 24 comments of the people that missed them that went in and wished them a happy birthday.
Well, and like one of the professors I studied under had a timer for an hour every morning because he was really well known in our field, or really is well known in our field, to go in and find everybody's birthday that it is and his thousands of friends to make sure he wishes them happy birthday. I'm like, I can't do it. I just cannot follow through with that. But with the hustle culture post too, I mean, I think you have several different things. Like maybe you're trying to garner business. Maybe you're trying to look for investors without coming out and saying, hey, anybody want to give me money for this venture? Like I said, a lot of times I think it's the attention, but sometimes it may not even be the attention from others as much as building your own dignity. Like, all right, look at what I'm up to. Kind of that fake it till you make it. I may not be, really on the grind the way I want to be, but I'm going to put this out there. And I guess the idea that, and it's one of my pet peeves, is hearing people talk about manifesting things like it's some magical thing that just comes out of nowhere. Like I'm going to talk about being successful, work at being successful, and because I truly believe it's going to happen, it's just going to happen someday. And it might be that too. Like if I believe hard enough and I put this out, and I'm going to make it happen rather than it's happening because I have a product to sell that people really want, or I have a good marketing technique or what have you. It's just, nope, I'm going to will this into existence sort of thing. And I'm talking about this more like, is it the behavior analytically? What are our sources of reinforcement? You know what I mean? The main ones are the attention component, and it could be any reaction, not necessarily just positive attention. It could be the monetary, the tangible. It could be that automatically reinforcing. Just hearing myself talk about myself makes me feel good, because you may have all noticed I love to talk, and I love to talk about myself, so that I can relate with that one. But I also think, to an extent, Chad, I think you kind of mentioned this day with like the culture is, and I want to be careful here. We're not talking about, the old guy, get off my lawn. Kids today just don't want to work. I don't think it has anything to do with not wanting to work. We've already talked about putting in the hours, putting in the hard work. But I think the last generation or two, there has been this push, like, I just don't want to do the 9 to 5. Like, how can I find a way to be successful without sitting in a cubicle all day, or going to the factory and, pushing a button, pulling a lever all day? And so it's not avoidance or escape of work itself, but of what this traditional model of work is. I'm trying to escape that and find a new way to venture in and be successful like that. You know what I mean? And I think that might add to it quite a bit too.
People are definitely wising up that loyalty to a company does not equal the company taking care of you. There's a lot of folks who, they'll wait for that promotion, they'll wait. And I think that's becoming less and less, to where before you would put in 20 years and the company would take really good care of you. And people are becoming a little bit more aware that everybody is expendable. Everybody can, there is no guarantee with your job. And I was an experience of that my department was completely shut down. I thought I was killing it. You could directly connect my efforts to the business's growth, and yet, right? So people are saying, I'm not willing to take that anymore. I'm going to figure out how to do it to where that security, I have control of it. Because if you work for a 9 to 5, you frankly don't have control. There's only so much that you have control over.
That's definitely been, I mean, in the ABA world, especially, I feel like in the last 10 years, that's been really apparent as private equity has taken interest. Like this idea that I'm part of a family and these organizations that are just trying to multiply their bottom line tenfold and then get out. Like you are so expendable in those companies. Like I've been part of, yeah, maybe edit this part out, but I've been part of those companies before where it's like I thought I was family, and turns out like I made too much, so they just laid me off and hired somebody to fill my shoes.
Yeah, not to toot my own horn, because this is not OnlyFans, and so I won't do that in video. But we, to me, the way I try to run a company is more about I want to give you a place that you want to work in. If you decide to take that ownership, you decide to feel like it's a family, that is up to you. Like, here's the bare minimum we need from you. If you do more work, go above and beyond, then you're probably going to be in line for the promotion before the next person who's just doing that. But all we ever expect is that bare minimum, and I don't expect you to take ownership or have that camaraderie. I guess camaraderie is not the right word. That feeling of being in that, being part of that family. But if you feel that way, and we fostered that culture that you do feel like that, then that's how I feel I'm doing something right. You know what I mean? It's not about how do I maximize every dollar, but how do I make something sustainable and we're a place where people feel valued and want to be, rather than me saying, hey, you jerks, you should want to work for me, and here's why. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I've tried to, I've done a few conference presentations on running a business behavior analytically, because of, like you're saying, with the private equity firms, it's all about profit. It's like, all right, we're going to throw a bunch of money at you, make your work-life balance hell. And now because of that, you can't complain because we pay you too much, sort of thing. And maybe we don't pay quite as much, but if we don't pay quite as much, it's because we're trying to make sure you have an enjoyable life too, rather than it shouldn't be about the money as much about as putting out a good product and being proud of what you're doing in our field, helping people, while also trying to then make as much money as you can, so you can either help more people or get into more ventures or have your Lamborghinis. You know what I mean?
The culture that I try to build with my company is one where I do the proper placement. So I bring people in that are better at that than I am. And then 2, I want them to just not come to me with problems. I want them to come to me with a solution. So if something comes up, okay, Chad, should we do this or this? I don't want them to say, what do we do?
Yeah,
right?
You want them to come in with the solution, so you're getting paid for nothing. I get you. That's what
that's what this is all about, right? But I want people who take self-accountability, but also want to bring to the table that empowerment of, I know what right looks like, and I'm empowered to take the right decisions. But also, if I do have a question, I'm going to present solutions rather than problems. And my positive demonstration of that is we have a team member who's based out of New York. She is completely independent. She kills it with work. We do monthly sync connections, and she brings 0 issues to the table. The person she replaced, who we did not have that culture instilled, and of course, people are different, but they constantly had to ask questions. There was a lot of hand-holding. There was a lot of approval. This new person who's been with us since like December, November, is just absolutely killing. I don't have to think about her. I don't have to think anything about her, because I know she's absolutely killing it, but she also knows she's empowered to do what right needs to be done.
Yeah, and that's probably, you talk about growing the business, trying to get to the point where you don't have to work so hard. So it's not just being part of a hustle culture, but That's not to glorify, because then now you have the fear of, I've got to let this go. I've got to let people run things, make decisions, do things without me. And that's scary. And things often don't go right, but you have to trust, okay, we're going to learn from this experience and struggle along the way. I always say the only thing worse than running a company is working for somebody else. Like it's not fun and games a lot of the time. But I also, like I said, the reason I didn't go into academia is because I couldn't handle the politics of the people with seniority trying to say, nope, you need to do this. I've never been a rule follower, I guess, is really.
You don't strike me as that type either.
No, I don't come across as the how dare you tell me what to do. I may have said this before, but I had a supervisor, a PhD student when I was in getting my master's, who was supervising me in his training. You really don't like being told you're wrong, do you? I'm like, does anybody like, is that something that people are just okay with getting corrective feedback? Because I know I need it, but I don't want it. I don't like it.
So back to the social media part, because I'm curious about this. I took a note about it because it might be a slight trigger for you, Steve. But Kyle brought up a part of it that was interesting, and it made me think, well, what if people are posting because it's a way of bringing something to reality? It's their sense of bringing it to reality. So we can think about, I want to start this business, or I want to be a model, or whatever it is, right? But actually putting it on social media then makes it real / tangible. Yes, Steve, I'm going into kind of like manifesting, right?
I saw where you're going here.
What if somebody has that to where that is their way of putting it out into the world to become tangible or achievable?
So again, you have to look at it in terms of what is the reinforcer there? What is it, the motivation as well? Because I felt that, when I was finishing community college, barely graduated high school, I was not a good student. I'm like, I'm going to go away to the university. I'm going to go and get a higher degree. And then at that point, like, all right, I'm going to get a master's. And then at that point, like, I'm going to get a PhD. And once I said it out loud, I felt like I had to fulfill it. I had to keep pushing. I could not be that person that made this plan and then didn't follow through. And so I wasn't putting on, social media. I was just putting out to friends and family that was what my plan was. But even then, I couldn't not follow through. And so if it's that sort of like, just, all right, I'm going to put it out there and hold myself accountable and really create this extra motivation to get through those days where, like, you just don't want to do this anymore. It's hell. It's horrible. I'm working too many hours. I'm miserable. Then I think that's, makes a lot of sense. But I also think we see a lot of these things where it's putting it out there, trying to manifest it, and then it's not being followed through with. And you don't know, is it that there's, it got hard, and not that, there's anything wrong with deciding this isn't for you and changing it, but is it was it that maybe the idea wasn't that great of an idea in the first place, and we didn't do the market research to figure out whether it might be successful? I don't know. And so I think there could be potential self-harm with putting it out there and then not being able to fulfill it, versus putting it out there just as that extra motivation. I'm going to find a way to make this work. And a lot of times it does come across as just, I'm going to say this and it's going to happen, rather than like, I'm going to do this and now here's my plan and I've thought this out, figured it out, and I have you can never have all the details figured out. Things are going to go wrong regardless throughout the process, and not every venture is going to be successful. So it's not even about, trying is better than not trying, obviously, but a lot of times it seems like it's only 2 weeks and the next venture's popping up. I'm like, did we even try it?
I like that take on it though, Chad. Like, if I put out there to my community, being, my immediate community, my, online community, that, I don't know, I'm 3 weeks sober or something like that, I'm far less likely to be showing up at the bar that night pounding whiskey shots, because I just told everybody that I wasn't doing that anymore, So
Yeah.
I don't know that like you could label that manifesting sobriety or something like that, but there are a lot of other contingencies that come with that by putting it out there too.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's a good analogy, because if you see a friend who's like, listen, I'm not drinking anymore, are they just hungover, not feeling well, and they don't really mean it? Or is it, okay, I think I might actually have a problem. And then you want that community support to not do that anymore, you know? And so obviously those are two different things. And you would never want to say, hey, nope, you keep drinking with me because I need my drinking buddy, even if you think they really have a problem. But if they just did a little too much last night and they don't feel good today, like, all right, shut up, man. We'll go out next week and you'll be fine, you know? And that was our friend culture, at least. I don't want to say that that's how all friends should be, but I think that's because that was ours. Probably it's how a lot of people experience it as well.
But it applies to a lot of contexts too. Like you announce you're starting a small business, like starting a small business, there are a lot of forks in the road where it's going to be way easier just to give up and stop. But if you're putting it out there saying like, this is what I'm doing, that there's going to be a little more juice, you know, in the like kind of urging you to like make the choice to keep going with it, because there's a little bit of like a negative reinforcement contingency there. Like if I fail, I've already told all these people I'm doing it, and then I'll have to tell them that like I actually didn't follow through on what I was saying I was going to do.
Yeah, I think it as long as it is being used as that extra motivation, that extra when things get rough, I'm gonna keep going hard because that is what needs to be done, and like I put it out there, I can't fail at it now. Then I think that's probably a positive thing, because you often you're going to hit those bumps in the road where you just don't want to do it anymore, regardless of what it is you're doing. But if it's just I'm putting this out here because I want everybody to see how cool I am, and then now the next week I'm putting out something completely different. To me, then I see those and I'm worried, like, all right, is this person really okay? You know what I mean? It's not even about what they're doing with their life, because you should be able to find dignity in anything you're doing, but okay, does this person actually need some help because they're floundering and this is more of a cry for help about where I'm at with my life than it is about, nope, look at the things I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with this, do you include the like mid-level marketing pyramid scheme, or even like the what was it, the
Essential oils, right?
yes, the crystals, no, like the passive income like crazes, are those kind of part of this culture? Are those subcultures? Where do those fit in with this from your perspective, Chad?
I think oftentimes I mentioned it before, a driving force for freedom. Oftentimes it's driven to time, the flexibility to be able to do what you want to do, but because you still have to financially support yourself, we're looking for the easiest way to do that. And oftentimes having to work for somebody else, take orders, work 9 to 5, only have weekends is not the easiest way. And with technology and the streamline of communication, we've opened up the doors for a lot of, like, vacuum cleaner salesmen back in the day. They were the authority. They went door to door and they were able to sell door to door because people just didn't have access to information of what the best was. Now everybody can do their own research and figure it out, and have their own thoughts and hypotheses supported because they Googled it and their algorithms supporting what they say, right? It's all skewed. When it comes to like your, MLMs and whatnot, I think that there is a really solid place, but I do not think that every single person is cut out for that type of lifestyle. Not everybody is a great salesperson. Not everybody is persuasive. Not everybody has the ability to have a genuine conversation and care about not only the person they're talking about, but care about the products that they're selling. And so I see like some of these MLMs or some of these, even some of the passive income businesses, which I don't think there's anything wrong with them if you can execute and you're doing it ethically. But I can see where some people might try to start and then they get knocked down because they sucked at it. And that can happen really, really often. It probably happens more often than not. I think that there's a certain subset of people that actually are capable of being successful with it. Some people might make enough to be able to take the extra vacation per year, right? And in a dual income household, maybe that's cool. They're able to contribute in a way that they otherwise wouldn't. But for somebody who like maybe has to support a family off that, I don't think everybody is cut out for that. And they're made out to appear to be really, really awesome. that you can make so much and do so much, and all you have to do is bring on 3 people below you, and then they do all the work, but you get paid through them. I think that it is, for the majority of people, a pipe dream. I don't think it's really realistically, a lot of success comes from it from the masses.
And I'll say, from a person just on social media, like, it drives me crazy that people are constantly trying to sell me stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if it's, I will use like the exercise health crazes that we see all the time, and like, this has obviously been going on a lot longer than the internet was even around, you know,
Yeah.
what the fads are and that sort of thing. But say like, all right, I have a new program to help you get in shape, and I'm like, yeah, but scientifically explain to me why your program is better. Like, where is this coming from? Where are the studies that show this is more effective than what I've tried in the past? And what is your, I don't want to say education, because education, formal education isn't necessary, but why is it that you know more about this than everybody else I've talked to about it in the past? And oftentimes it just feels like, nope, I'm cold calling everybody I'm friends with on Facebook, or everybody I can reach on Facebook. And I think this kind of is a microcosm of a bigger issue in our society as a whole, is like, social media has become this place where you just get all your information. And so you're talking about people have all this information, access to information. You don't need the vacuum salesperson, because you can look up reviews and see where people are feeling it. But when it comes to scientific knowledge or news or all these things, people are just listening to people like spewing random bullshit. Like, nobody knows who to actually trust or listen to anymore. And I'll admit, like, the news is often skewed, so you can't necessarily trust the mainstream news either, but it's usually better than some random person on YouTube just talking loudly, yelling about some stuff. And so I worry not necessarily about those sales and those sort of things, but the culture as a whole and how it all ties into the social media culture. And to me, it almost seems like this hustle culture is just a small piece of what we're seeing from society as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, with like the workout program thing you're talking about, they may be portraying it as they're trying to get you on board. Realistically, what they're doing is they're saying this is something everybody wants to some extent, which is to live longer, to have a healthy life. If they have kids, to be able to play with them for 2 hours rather than 1 hour, right? Everybody wants that, as to some extent. And the idea is, if somebody's on the fence and I get in front of them, then maybe I can push them over and sell them. So for that, that's where social media becomes great, because it's broadcast marketing, right? You can get in front of a lot of people very quickly. You can, doesn't mean everybody does. But even with like the passive income, more than 75% of online courses are never completed. So people sign up for this online course of whatever it is, and they never actually finish it. But guess what? The person who made the video and did it one time and is selling it 100 times, they still sold it 100 times, right? You can still grind and have that hustle culture with that passive effort. But the reality is, are you actually selling a product that's making a difference in people's lives? Well, at the completion rate of online courses, 3 out of 4, you're not making a difference in their life.
Yeah. And I think anytime you're out there trying to, I mean, oftentimes the true knowledge is hard. It's not the easy thing. Like, tying it back into what I was saying, like, if I'm looking at this new program, and I'm not necessarily talking about just people posting what they're selling, but like getting messages from people and like personalized messages, that sort of thing. Like, hey, I saw your profile picture. You should probably get in better health, sort of thing.
That's an example of somebody who's not, that's an example of somebody who's not cut out for that job. Like, they're not going to be successful.
It's not what
great
everybody
sales tactic.
It's not what everybody says. Like, hey, it looks like you're gonna die soon. You should probably come and listen to me.
Nice Christmas card.
But like, when I'm looking at it, I want to actually see the studies showing, like, all right, protein intake compared to carb intake, what are the effects on the body? Go down even to like the building of ATP, which is, you know, the food for the cells to power itself, and how that breaks down. And most people are gonna be like, yeah, I don't want that much information. Just tell me why this is better. And so I'm probably not the best target either, because I'm like, nope, I spent way too much of my life learning how to read, scientific data and read these studies and figure out, even if I'm not familiar with the content, I can learn about the content quickly and then understand what your data is showing. And that's not what most people want either. And I guess as a whole, I wonder, do we need to try to push that culture? And this isn't like a rhetorical question. I'm not asking you guys to answer it, but like, do we need to push education, and again, not formal education, but understanding of what is true or not more than it is about, okay, what are we putting out there? But just how do we get people to stop believing in things that they shouldn't is, I guess, my bigger concern about a lot of these things as a whole. And tie it back into what we're talking about here, is this culture potentially, and not as a whole and not for everybody, but potentially problematic for society, because now you have a lot of people that may be floundering because they're looking for their next venture that's going to make them, rich, or give them the notoriety, and somehow build up that level of dignity, like we talked about in a few episodes ago, rather than just finding a job that they can be very good at, being successful and living a better life that way. You know what I mean? Is it potentially harmful? And I guess it would come down to the numbers. Are more people being successful on their grind, or are more people out grinding and not making it through? You know what I mean?
I think there's always somebody willing to take your money to tell you or give you what you want to hear. So like, are you talking about like basically like ethically grinding, or like grinding in a manner in which like upholds like scientific integrity?
Well,
I don't think that most people would care. At least if I'm out selling used cars that I know are going to break down, but it's how I feed my family, I don't think I care that they're going to break down if I'm selling them. You know what I mean? If people aren't
well,
willing to buy them and people aren't willing to do their homework, then essentially, like, who cares, as you, like, the person kind of like shoveling the BS.
yeah. Well, when Chad brought up this conversation, I'm like, all right, let's make sure we're talking about the same hustle culture. Are we talking about the stuff we see on Facebook here, or are we talking about like the old school, like, all right, I'm going to go hustle people on the street? I'm trying to give everybody the benefit of the doubt that we're not out doing 3-car Monte and really hustling people. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a scam necessarily, but that we're putting it out there that, hey, you can maybe get rich quick isn't probably the right terminology there, but like, you can be successful if you just do this thing. And it may or may not be true. And even if it is true, is it not true for enough people that we're actually hurting
I see.
people by making it seem like this is how it works? You know what I mean? Is the culture as a
Yeah.
whole beneficial for people because they're out there working hard and doing well? Or is it harmful for society as a whole because not enough people are doing well while trying to be part of that culture? Is kind of where I'm coming from.
Gotcha.
Before
Then
Radio Shack, I started off selling fake cologne on the streets, and we didn't lie and say that it was real, right? Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
I can't, because this is going to be public. All I want everyone to know is at one point, so Chad was adopted from Colombia, and at one point he insinuated as a small toddler he was peddling wares on the street in Colombia. And so that is all I could think of as you were saying that. But I apologize. I will not take that joke or that line of thought any further, because we will definitely be canceled if I do.
I reckon what I was getting at, though, was that, like, we didn't do it in an unethical way because we quite literally, all the bottles were the same bottle, right? It was just mass produced stuff, right? So we were out there grinding, and we were, there were sales incentives, and quite frankly, the company paid terribly, but it was a really good time. But it got me into like the whole sales aspect, which then led to working for a company, learning more, working for another company, going through being part of their training program. And now all of those experiences have shaped what I'm building my company into, right? So I've done the Cutco knives, I've done the fake cologne on the streets, and I've also
I still have some of those damn knives in my parents' kitchen.
Probably. They last forever. I didn't last very long with Cutco, though. That was a cutthroat business. But
No pun intended.
Yeah, I suppose my point is, like, even if somebody did get into like an MLM that maybe it was a little sketchier than what we would really like to see, my hope is that people are learning from those experiences, because if it doesn't work out, then they can apply that same hustle and grind and effort into something that is going to be either more ethical, or they're going to start building something of their own and shape it based off their learned experiences, rather than try and duplicate the crap that can be out there. I myself am thankful that I understood right from wrong and learned from those experiences, and was able to shape, even when I was working for a company, shape my local store that I was in charge of with some really strong boundaries, expectations, and then later on, the company that I'm building also have those embedded as well.
Well, all that jail time gave you time to think about it, so that helped. But
Yes,
no,
yes, of course.
no, we were horrible kids. Maybe someday we'll get more insight into the lives we lived. But I think that's a great point too, is even in a college class or a grad school level class, you only get out of it what you put into it too. So if you're not sitting there learning those lessons, you just, at least with college, maybe you'll be more successful because you'll have those letters after your name. And so you can now use that to try to further your career. But if you're not in there learning the ins and outs, learning from your mistakes and finding a way to be more successful in the future, then it's not necessarily going to work out for you, regardless of the approach you take. And so I think it's a good point that if you are taking the time to do these things, learn from those mistakes, learn what works, learn what doesn't, it could very well build upon that repertoire and help you be successful in the future. And then at that point, it wouldn't be problematic. But if you are just going through trying to finish what you started and who knows how it's going to come out, then, or just get the money and get out of there quick, like we talked about with the financial companies buying up so many companies nowadays. I always think about, and I've heard they're doing much better now, but Red Lobster, or even what happened with Mongolian barbecue, where it was bought by a financial company. They've cut corners to maximize profits, and then you take those profits and run with a few years later. That, I think, is the message that some people get out of these. It's all about the money, and it's not about the product or giving, doing things in a way that makes sense for longevity of your success. And so hopefully, like you're saying, people are finding ways to learn and to build their repertoire and to be more successful from these things. But I think socially, we need to also be aware, are we reinforcing these behaviors in situations where this person's actually struggling because we keep giving other reinforcers? It's not the monetary success, it's just the attention piece. And now it's maintaining behavior that's not actually helping them survive or thrive,
Yeah, that makes sense. We're kind of, I'll be the bearer of bad news that we're kind of rounding out our time.
Chad, anything else you wanted to throw out there, correct me on, so we're not ending on, at least we're ending on like a half positive note this time. We rarely do that.
So how do you feel about the statement that hustle often is mistaken for progress, but realistically it can be looked at from like a distraction from focus, or comes from is rooted in fear and not freedom? What are your thoughts around that?
Man, you just opened up a can of worms that we have a whole nother episode on, because we have people.
Gotcha.
We have people in our field that will say that there is no such thing as reinforcement based. It's all fear based. It's all aversive control. Like doing my work may be reinforced by my paycheck, but it's the fear of the loss of that money and not surviving that's the true motivation, not the reinforcer that I'm getting. You know what I mean? It's the fear of missing out on the reinforcer, not the reinforcer. So you're getting into like some real theoretical areas there that we don't have time, but we'll talk about later, I'm sure.
I like it, Chad. Maybe we should have Brad. I don't know. Are they gonna have to duke it out, or what?
We'll have some more weddings for him to go to or something.
Right.
But no, I think in terms of the distraction, it very well can be. Like, how much time are you out there talking about what you're doing rather than doing it? And unless that is your model for sales, is talking about doing it, which may or may not be successful, it really could be a hindrance for that individual too. And it could be that you're putting more emphasis into the culture than the work that you're trying to build and to be part of that culture. And so that is definitely something that you'd have to analyze almost individually. And if we see someone that just is not doing well in life, we always say, like, as long as you're surviving, then keep doing what you're doing if that makes you happy. If you believe you have a mental illness, but it's not causing you distress or causing you not to be successful and live the life you want to lead, then who cares what's going on? You know what I mean? And so as long as you're doing all right, that's fine. But if, for say, we had someone that, you know, had severe depression and severe anxiety because they've been following down this path over and over and over again, and it's not being successful and they don't know what to do or where to turn, then we might do some skill building on like actually recognizing what works and what doesn't, and that spending your time talking about what you're doing then instead of actually doing it might be a hindrance to that process. You know what I mean? So I don't think there's an answer there, but it very well could be a major problem, and you'd have to just look at it on an individual basis. You know what I mean?
When Steve and I are driving up north, these are the kinds of questions I pose to him just to listen and like absorb the point of view that I never would have even thought about, and then just like a sponge soak it in. And sometimes it just goes all the way out the other ear. Sometimes it sits and marinates, but I definitely am better because of it.
Yeah, half the time he's like, yeah, you could never run for politics with thoughts like that. So
Right.
As you discussed, my dog is losing her mind because there's literally a door-to-door salesman at my door right now, knocking and looking at me through the window, and I'm not not getting up. So.
Just make the eye contact like I do at the bar after a couple beers.
The intense. Oh, we went full circle there. The intense eye contact. Yeah. There he goes. He left. Not enough grind. Should have stayed. I'm almost done.
Also, I mean, we can't even get into it, but sometimes you'll get him on the ring camera. I'm like, all right, I'm training my new guy. This guy's a real tough guy. You just got to keep talking. Don't let him off. I'm like, I can hear you, first of all. And second of all, if you convince me that this is a good product, it's better than what I'm using, then I might buy it. But if you just try to bully me into buying it, I'm just going to laugh in your face. So that doesn't work with me at all. So
and
that's a fair response.
It's not quite the same thing. I was at the store the other day. I was buying beer. The cashier was training a trainee. I gave him my ID and he handed it right back, and he looked at the trainee and said, "Hey, if he looks like he's obviously over 40, you don't even need to check their ID."
Ouch.
So that's where I'm at now. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of times too, it is intimidation. People just can get sales because they intimidate people and they're afraid to say no. And I do not shy away from confrontation at all. Like I live for confrontation. So it's not going to be helpful for me, but I can see how it works for some people, even though I think it's horrible. But all right, we found a way to end on a negative note. So
as always, yes.
I think we'll throw it out there this time because of what we're talking about. Always try to stay in the positive, live in the now, enjoy what you can. Don't take life so seriously because, and this will probably be another episode in the future, from everything I can tell, eventually the financial system will collapse one way or another, and none of this will make sense or matter anymore. So just enjoy what you can.
Such a positive note.